Hi, it is your creative weird makeup artist friend Cat Sketch to bring you guys another chit chat get ready with me video, doing a very viral hack on TikTok that I'm a little late for with some red lipstick, and we're gonna be talking about TV shows that I love that were canceled or probably old because I'm a grandma. So subscribe for more videos like this because we do 2 videos every Monday and Friday here on this channel doing not only beauty makeups but body paintings, effects videos, chit chat get ready with me's, telling spooky tales. So if you enjoy these, subscribe, hit the notification bell for some more. So let's talk about these TV shows and do this viral TikTok hack that I found on, of course, TikTok. This was the first video I saw of it where you do red lipstick right here on the bridge of your nose and on your forehead. You blend that in before your foundation with a medium to full coverage foundation, and it makes your skin look hopefully not sunburnt, which I think it might do, but more sun-kissed glow from within, a like really pretty blusher. It reminds me of if cottagecore had a makeup trend, because the cottagecore girls, you know, they're out and about frolicking through the sunshine and fields, and they would get a glow like this, I feel like. Maybe it's just me. I'm using my favorite primer. This is the e.l.f. Mint Melt primer. It's so amazing. And let's talk about these TV shows that I love and you may not know about, because I grew up in the 90s. I'm a millennial, and these are shows that were canceled, no longer exist, that were amazing in my opinion. I'll do some of the more current ones at first because they get real old. There's one show on here that I'm pretty sure is from the 80s. Because again, why am I drinking a Coke during this? I'm old. I should say older than my audience. So let's get started on this and talk about Freaks and Geeks. If you haven't heard of Freaks and Geeks, oh my god. Ooh, I shouldn't have used one that I didn't know that was shiny. Let's take that off and do one that's not shiny. This has gloss in it. Put some more primer on. Let's do a matte red. But Freaks and Geeks was the TV show that DeFranco, what's his name? From Spider-Man? James Franco, Busy Phillips is in here, Jason Segel, and Seth Rogen. That's how Seth Rogen laughs, and it's crazy to me. It's just how he laughs. I don't know what to tell you. I literally look like if an Oompa Loompa was in the Lil Nas music video. The one where he's spiraling down the pole, straight down to hell. Oh my god. Am I gonna And now I see that they're using a brush. Why didn't I do that first? I feel like that gets it better. I'm gonna put a wig on later. That's why my hair literally looks like Ratatouille created it. I literally look like I went to Florida for the first time. Did not think about sunscreen. And not only that, but the tea of it all is my favorite full coverage foundation. I ran out of it. So I'm gonna be using the Beauty Blender foundation. So hopefully this works. But Freaks and Geeks is so good. It is a coming of age high school like TV show. I can't explain how good it is. It's like freshman to senior levels of high school students all are connected and become friends in the most extraordinary, weird ways. It's better than Dawson's Creek, I'll say that. Not to take a huge dump on Dawson's Creek, it's just not my thing. But Freaks and Geeks, it's hard to explain again unless you've seen it. It's been a while since I've seen it. I saw it in college, but it's so good. I'm pretty sure I saw it twice. That's how good it was. Like right after, oh my gosh, I look like Pepto-Bismol. Right after I watched the whole entire series, I wanted to watch it again. My all-time favorite show though, that was horribly canceled. I mean, they rushed the ending of this, but it's still worth watching because again, it's my all-time favorite show. I got to be taught by one of the makeup artists from this show, which is one of the few highlights of my life. No, I have some highlights, more than that. But when I tell you the show is so good, if you like set designs, costumes, murder mysteries, musicals, Kristen Chenoweth's in it. Lee Pace was like my college all-time ultimate crush heartthrob. This show was everything. Again, it's my all-time favorite show. It's about this guy that lives in an apartment and he like he has a bakery and he becomes boyfriend, girlfriend situation with his childhood crush dream girl in the most mysterious way, because he gains these powers when he was a kid where he can bring stuff back from the dead to life. And his girlfriend's one of those people that he brings back from the dead, because he also has a side job with a real crime scene investigator. They can only be alive for like 5 minutes or so, and then he has to touch them again to go back to death, or he can't touch them at all, because he touches them a second time, they're gonna die. It's a whole situation. So he has to like kiss his girlfriend through like saran wrap, because he brought her back to life, but he doesn't want her to die again. So he can't touch her again. It is so good. I'm trying not to give away too much, because there's so many other characters that's so good in it. Again, murder mysteries are my absolute favorite. I grew up on X-Files. The costuming and makeup in this is exquisite. And of course, how can you not also have a love crush thing on Lee Pace like I did? But it's good. Now let's take it back to the 90s, because that's where a lot of my childhood TV show watching, before I had to have, you know, taxes due, a life, and jobs, I was living my full entire life watching movies and TV shows in the 90s. When my day just consisted of school, pizza bagels, Doritos, and watching these. The Nanny, that show, everything. Fran Drescher in that show, amazing. Her clothing, amazing. That literally has to be the best intro ever. TV show intro of song and grace and beauty. That show's amazing. If you have not seen The Nanny with Fran Drescher, let me just tell you my synopsis of it. Basically, she's this Jewish girl with a lovely family. Her mom is extra loud, and she got an extra loud sense of fashion. Her voice could be loud and annoying to some people, but she's like so unique. I want to say she worked in a bridal shop. I should know this intro song because it tells her whole life story. And she got fired and kicked out, and she was left with literally nothing. She went door to door to get a job, or was she selling makeup? Oh my gosh, I should look at this intro again. And she came across this handsome single man who had like 3 kids and a butler and a huge mansion, and he said, oh, I like this girl, there's something about her, I need a nanny to help me with these children while I work. So he hired her on the spot. It was like fate. And she starts falling in love with the children, feeling like kind of a mother figure, even though, like, you know, she's all about the clothes and the looks, and she's not really depicted as a mother figure. But not only that, she falls in love with the man, and he's super handsome, super cute, and it's everything. The show's so good. I miss it so much. And I would not only look forward to each plot in each episode, but what she was wearing. It really got me into fashion. Like, I feel like Becoming Friends with Bunny really got me into wearing dresses and painting my nails, but this show really got me interested in fashion and like being excited about my own clothing, because you don't need a certain body type to fit into clothes you like. That's my little spiel. Speaking about the 90s, but on the other spectrum of like blue collar life, more traditional mom and dad home life, was the show Roseanne. I grew up watching Roseanne. When I tell you, like, this show, I thought that the father in there was like someone was the type of husband I was looking for. Blue collar job, super nice to his wife, even though they joked around. Like, John Goodman in Roseanne was everything, and like the way that show ended, I don't remember crying that hard over a TV show in so long. The way this show ended, it was so good, especially like female comedians I feel like had it rough in the 90s, and this really showed. I can't even explain to you. I love the aunt, I love the dad. It didn't even feel like they were acting. And it was just like a family-oriented, blue-collar, like lower middle class family, and the love this family had for each other, and they dealt with real life situations, was so incredibly amazing, so good. I'm gonna dip into my all-time favorite neutrals palette. This is neutrals for me. I know it's a lot of sparkles, but this stoned Urban Decay palette. I feel like I'm the only one on YouTube like ranting and raving about this palette. It's so freaking bomb. If you love shimmers, if you love neutral brown tones, the makeup I'm inspired by for today's video, I almost forgot to say, is from Pigeon Doll. He creates these beautiful dolls, and the makeup he paints onto these dolls are absolutely exquisite. He dyes the hair on the dolls, does the fashion, designs them by hand. It's art, and I just loved this makeup look, even because it's like neutrals but bold. So that's what we're doing. The next TV show I wanted to talk about that I grew up watching in the 90s that no one ever remembers or talks about is the show Grace Under Fire. Grace Under Fire was a show about a mother with children who had to raise her kids in a not so normal household where it was her and her best friend raising her kids. The intro I remember was at like a gas station. Again, super blue collar job life. I feel like the 90s was the real 9-to-5 job, really like showcasing that in not only television, but on commercials, in theaters on the commercials, and it really started showing lives like these that were not the norm. Sure, it wasn't like gay parents. Sure, it wasn't like fosters, adopted children in the family, but it was a step in the right direction where the mother had to raise her children with her best friend, which wasn't always conventional in the 90s on television. Dylan Sprouse was in this show, and what I loved about Grace, the main character mother, was that my face looks pink as can be. What I loved about Grace was that she had a deep voice like I do. I feel like I have a very deep voice for a female, and to see her like dating, raising kids, and like it made me really think, even as a kid, like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to be married to a man to have a family and to be happy and successful, and like I just liked it. It was a simple show, but it was so good. Oh, and Grace was a recently divorced alcoholic and supported 3 kids with her friend. It was great. To try to counter-react all this redness, I'm gonna dip into my Lunatic Cosmetics Lab palette. I always talk about this. I use this to contour today, but I'm gonna get these like matte highlight tones to try to counteract the redness and to set my under eyes. One of my all-time favorite shows that reminds me of the same type of Grace Under Fire genre was, if Grace Under Fire had aliens, it would be Third Rock from the Sun. I cannot tell you how much me and my mother loved this show. John Lithgow is in it, who's legendary. There's so many, oh my gosh, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was another crush of mine. Oh my goodness, the show was so good. So it was about, again, an unconventional family. There was a brother and sister, and the brother, he had kids, but they were like, they used to be aliens that came to Earth in human form. And they're supposed to look like a more conventional family without a mother figure, but the older of the aliens turned out to be the younger sibling son in it. And so it was 2 brothers and a sister, and John Lithgow was like the oldest brother. And it was so I can't even explain to you how good this was. Again, the female in this show had a more lower voice. She had more masculine tendencies. French Stewart, that played one of the main characters, was my absolute favorite character in this whole show. So when they had free time, they would look up at the stars and like think about their hometown, and they would talk to the big head and like conversate with their alien. It was just their alien friends. It was so good because they had to they made normal life seem a little fun, because normal human life to them was so out of this world, and they had to learn new things every day. And it kind of made me think about my own life, on how lucky I was to have running water, and how that's unique to some people, because not everybody has running water or television and movies. And it was just such a good show. Now, during this time when this show was popular, another popular show was Are You Afraid of the Dark? And I didn't get into Are You Afraid of the Dark till Bunny showed it to me in my 20s. This show is so good. It reminds me of Goosebumps. That's another great show. you know me, I love scary stories. Goosebumps, just, I read the books growing up, so seeing it on television was amazing. Are You Afraid of the Dark was so good because it made me want to go to summer camp. I would go camping with my family, but it wasn't the same as like traditional summer camp. And I feel like my parents wouldn't be into throwing sparkly dust, magical dust into the fire to make it ignite and talk about these scary stories. Like, I would get genuinely scared watching these shows, especially Goosebumps growing up. Another great show like that at the time was Tales from the Crypt. You guys know I've done a makeup of that on this channel and I love that show so much. It was also an experience because when I was a kid, I wasn't old enough to stay up and watch it, but sometimes my mom would let me, so it felt like a rite of passage. The host of the show, the little crypt keeper guy, was absolutely amazing. But dipping back into the 90s, let's talk about Boy Meets World. When I tell you how good this show was, it was one of the first shows where I saw black and white couples, where I saw the main characters weren't your beautiful, like, girl next door supermodel looking couples. Topanga and Corey and Sean. Ooh, I mean, Sean, I loved how the geekier boy was the main character and his best friend was the hot guy. Topanga was like more voluptuous, was not your rail thin girl, and I loved seeing that. And it's so crazy that we have to talk about body image because we're not used to seeing real girls on television as a main character back in the 90s. Boy Meets World had one of the best theme songs. You really grew up with them because he was so young in the first season. Oh my gosh, and he had Mr. Feeney. Everything about this show was so incredibly good. They dealt with real issues that teens go through and real looking people. Like Corey and Topanga look like kids I grew up with. That's what I loved about this show. Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I love anything witchy. I love that she also didn't grow up in a normal household. She had 2 aunts that raised her, and we never really knew what happened with her parents. Every episode of Sabrina the Teenage Witch was mysterious. You didn't know what was gonna happen. They went to other realms, and it was so magical. Honestly, I used to love Sabrina even more than Harry Potter, and that's saying something. The whole setup of her having to tell her future boyfriend, oh my gosh, Harvey was so cute. She had to like explain to her boyfriend or future boyfriend about her being a witch or hiding it from him was so interesting and good, because I feel like a lot of people, you know, they have some things that they have to or feel like they were gonna hide from, if it was their parents or someone they were dating at first before they let them know. I mean, I hid my YouTube channel from many a boyfriend, and including Corey, before I told him. I was hiding you guys from Corey for a while because, I don't know, it felt weird to say, hey, I'm online, when you tell someone you make content online via video. They don't think effects makeup is the first thing. But Salem, the talking cat in the show, the ants were amazing. I loved it. Speaking of girls that were badass and amazing, other than Sabrina the Teenage Witch, that's why I liked her. She had superpowers. She was the main character. She was badass. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You cannot tell me if you grew up as a girl in the 90s that you didn't like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was everything. The only downside is supermodel hot people throughout everything. That's why I feel like brought in the ratings of vampire kissing. This was before Twilight was, it was still a book and not, I feel like, not a movie. And I like, of course I like Buffy the Vampire Slayer more than Twilight. You could fight me on that, it's okay. But Buffy the Vampire Slayer not only had better acting than Twilight, but they had better effects makeup because Twilight was mostly CGI. But that's just my snarkiness coming through. Why I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Girls fighting, fake fighting action. Just, there was also nerdy love stories, which I love. You remember Willow? When I saw Willow, I'm like, I don't care when or if I have a daughter, if I have a cat or a dog, something that I love in my life is gonna be named Willow after this girl from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Oh my gosh, that librarian dude, hot, hot. Spike, hot. Angel, of course hot. They even made a sideshow off this show called Angel. It was one of the love interests. I know I'm not sounding like I'm making sense, Buffy was a girl who was a teenager who had to live her high school life and college life being a vampire slayer. Yeah, I loved it. It is as cool as it sounds. I need to rewatch it because I wonder if it looks silly now. Speaking of high school and school girls that guided my life, Sister Tia and Tamara Mori. I mean, other than Mo to the E to the Moesha was great, Tia and Tamara were my #1 girls. Like, they're twins that grew up apart, but then they met each other in real life. And one twin had a single mother, one twin had a single father, and they ended up living together, and the mother and fathers had to, for some reason they moved in together, and the mother and fathers had to like become friends or live with each other, coexisting, which is so random and weird. Another great, odd, bringing up children family life story. It's so good. Their boyfriends were always hot. The scenarios that they got in, they gave me a lot of Lucille Ball, I Love Lucy vibes, these girls, which I loved. Especially one of the girls was a lot more, there was like the more studious one, and there was one who was more of a like goofy, like class clown girl. It was so incredibly good. Can I say good anymore? But Brandy and Moesha was also good. I think Smart Guy came after this show because there was a boy in there who had who then was on the show Smart Guy, and in real life I'm pretty sure he's a sibling to Tia and Tamara Mori. I still follow like their Instagrams to this day. I wish they did more acting, and it's like, I loved that show. I remember I had, you know those teachers that like change your life? The teacher for that for me, who let me cry in her arms, and I told her why I always cried, and she knew that I was always homesick, or I actually was going through PTSD, depression, and like the whole bit in the 5th grade, was Mrs. Jones. Mrs. Jones was my everything. She really let me bring out my art in myself, and oh, I could just cry talking about Mrs. Jones. Me and her shared the love of Tia and Tamara, sister, and I even gave her an autograph of them because my dad was friends with them and worked on Sister, and oh, I could cry talking about Mrs. Jones. Don't cry, Kat, because your makeup's gonna run and it already looks terrible with this TikTok hack. But I went to my first camp with school friends, and everyone made fun of me because I missed my family and I wouldn't want to eat with them. This is before I knew I was food sensitive, and I would cry and be embarrassed if I did any little mistake, and I know it's connected to like my past and PTSD and stuff, and I didn't know that in the 5th grade at like, what, 9 years old, 10 years old. So she would let me leave the cafeteria and let me come back to eat desserts. And I just lived off of chocolate pudding and Jell-O with Mrs. Jones. And she would even come out in her pajamas to ask if I'm okay. I miss her so much. I should find Mrs. Jones. Don't cry. Mrs. Jones was from Grover Cleveland Elementary. I'm pretty sure she taught there for almost 20 years or more in Lakewood, California, this little town that I grew up in right across the street, but I had so much anxiety. I would have my mom drive me to school even though I lived right across the street because maybe I was spoiled, but I was so anxious to be embarrassed in front of children my age. And Mrs. Jones always made me feel loved. Didn't expect that, to get emotional over canceled TV show video and TikTok hacks, but there you go. Let's move on to Saved by the Bell. Everyone knows the iconic episode on Saved by the Bell where Jessie Spano was the smart girl and she was hooked on pills and was crying, and the only problem I have with that show is, again, they all look like supermodels. We all liked Zach and AC Slater, but it was just such a cool growing up, great written show. It's honestly like Friends level of good, especially at its time. It got so many views and was so popular for a good reason. I mean, just a great show. Has anyone heard of the show The Famous Jet Jackson? Oh my goodness, that boy was so fine. It was about a kid in high school who was like a famous spy. I was just, Destiny's Child aired on this and some other popular celebrities too. Like, that show was so good and he was so fine. I think that's how they got us back then, to get a fine looking cast. But isn't that how they get us now? I mean, look at Game of Thrones. The last high school growing up 90s show I'm going to talk about is Prince of Bel-Air. That show should go down in history as one of the best TV shows ever made. One of the best, again, intros apart from Fran Drescher's. This is one of the best intros of all time. I'm pretty sure it was the best. I'm telling you, a TV show intro is everything. It really makes shows. It's where Will Smith started. It's amazing to see men cry and show emotion on camera that's real and raw. It's amazing to see that you could, like, it was really a coming from nothing and growing up to something type show. When that show finished, I cried. I cried. It was so good. It's rare you see a TV show where you really feel like you're watching the famous, like, I'm talking about worldwide famous celebrity grow up, and that's what Prince of Bel-Air really did for people. It's not a cat sketch video unless you have an upper lip highlight that's out of this world, you know that. Another show I have to mention is X-Files, because the newer ones with them in it is not good. I'm talking about the 90s ones were the best. This show and Tales from the Crypt really shaped me as a human being on the grown-up I am today. I am so glad. This really, like, got me and my mother to have somewhat of a relationship growing up. I don't know where I would be without this show. I'm being that exaggerative, but also, the woman is gorgeous. Amazing actress. She was in Great Expectations, Gillian Anderson. Agent Mulder was so goofy looking, but you loved him. It was also honestly great to see a woman in a high power position as a main character. And it wasn't always about her looks or anything like that. And murder mystery with aliens. How would you not like that? FBI agents who are in their own department searching for the truth of aliens. Amazing. Let's get into kid shows I grew up with that were canceled that really remind me of childhood. Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? This was a game show where you had to like find out this woman where she was. She looked like an agent with a red coat. I just remember watching this show every waking moment of my life. Another show probably was one of my all-time favorites was The Puzzle Place, because they showed Native American kids, Chinese kids, Indian kids, Mexican children, Spanish children, like all cultures. And in the 90s, during these kids' TV shows, they really like heavily relied since how famous Sesame Street got and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, like puppets were everywhere in the 90s with kids shows. This had so many puppets, so they could really, I feel like once you have puppets instead of real humans, you could really do a lot. This show was so good. Even the animals talked in this show. Speaking, of course, I have to talk about Mr. Rogers. I mean, that's one of the best kids shows of all time, I feel like, if not the best. I mean, Elmo's all fun and everything, but there's nothing like Mr. Rogers. Do y'all remember Wishbone with that dog? That probably everyone, you know how everyone wanted a Chihuahua during the Taco Bell era of the Chihuahua commercials? I feel like everybody wanted a Jack Russell Terrier because of Wishbone. And it had a great intro to the show of this dog frolicking with an outfit through like nature, and it was, what's the story, Wishbone? What's this you're dreaming of? My singing sucks, but it was so cute, and they just told stories to kids with this dog. Oh my gosh, so good. Another show that I remember in like middle school, I want to say, was Zoom. It was almost like science fair projects and activities that kids who stayed home could do. I don't know what it is about that show, but it was good. I like how I can't remember what I ate yesterday, but I can remember these theme song shows, like some of the wording to it, and these shows that were canceled over 20 years ago. The last show I have to talk about is this random one called Storytime with Kino. It was another like puppet who told stories with this woman. I think I like this show too because I had a second grade teacher who sadly passed away of breast cancer right after I had her. Her name was Miss Comini, and she looked and reminded me of the woman in this show that would read stories to everyone with this puppet. That's why I think I like this show. Anyways, I'm going to do my lips and put on some lashes, and I will be back. And just like that, we have completed this makeup look. Let me know what you think of this TikTok hack of doing the red lipstick under the foundation. I do not like it at all. I could see a difference. I don't know if it's shown on camera, how red my face looks compared to my hand or the rest of my skin. I definitely feel like a 90s teenage TV show star who's trying to look like a model in this look. But you should definitely go check out Pigeon Doll on Instagram, who inspired this makeup look. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was so much fun to do. I hope you enjoyed my rant about my favorite TV shows that were canceled or no longer exist. Leave a comment down below if you have a favorite TV show that was either canceled or doesn't exist anymore from the old days in your past. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today and for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!